Okay, so I believe this is live now, which is fantastic. Good evening, everybody. Um, Lovely to be live. I feel like I haven't done live in a while. And obviously, tonight's live is super, super exciting because we're going to have Cora, who's going to be joining us, the lingerie addict. So I'm so excited for that. And I'm going to see if I can get her. Here she is. Fantastic. Let's see. I have failed. How do I do this? You would think at this point I would know how to get a live going. There we go. Let's invite. Hopefully that works. Good. Oh, there she is.
Hi. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I'm no good with various things like this either. So, go us for figuring it out.
And also, like in typical fashion, I don't even have a tripod, so like I'm holding this. So this is gonna be
Yeah.
like one of those like super jiggly lives. So I
Mine is
apologize.
propped up on my computer because I'm in my office.
But it's
But we're
so
gonna
good to see
we're
you.
gonna
Well,
do
I
it.
mean,
It's so good
see
to see
you.
you too.
Oh my goodness. So for everybody joining, obviously this is Cora, the lingerie addict.
Hey, welcome everybody.
And I'm like so touched, and I hope that I will not cry this time. Because for anybody who doesn't know, obviously Cora is an amazing lingerie expert who has been running the lingerie addict, which has been had such a pivotal role in the lingerie industry for the past 14 years. And as of April, she will be sort of closing that chapter on the blog, and focusing on the next chapter, which is fantastic. But for those of us who've been fans of the lingerie addict for a long time, is sad. It's sad and happy because I am on a personal level so happy for you to be doing whatever it is that you are going to do. But also as somebody who loves the lingerie addict, it's the end of an era. So I'm so glad that you were able to come and be our Nubian beings again. I feel like we did this at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, we did, didn't we? You're right. Oh gosh, that was like a lifetime ago.
Literally, it
Wow.
feels that way.
Yeah. Yeah, a
Um,
lot I think it's happened with both of us since then. Yeah.
yes, and so I'm just so glad to get to have you. Hi, Asia. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you all for showing up.
Yes, and obviously, if you have questions, you can put them in the question box. I will try and figure out answering the questions box. But yes, this is just going to be a lovely chat, speaking to Cora about her journey, talking. Yes, Paige, that's right. We are so excited to see what Cora does next, but heartbroken that the lingerie addict is ending, as it were. So we're going to be chatting the lingerie addict. We're going to be chatting your journey, Nubian skin. It's just going to be good. It's going to be fun. And as I said, if anybody has questions, you can just put them in the questions box below. But obviously, looking back, I mean, 14 years.
That's
14
forever
years.
in internet time, right? That's like a
That's like
lifetime.
the
And
beginning.
it's so funny because there are people who started reading me as a teenager and they're adults now. They're not
That's
even
actually
young
horrifying to
adults.
think
They're
about.
adults. And I feel like that really gives me a sense of how long I've been doing this. But people are like, yeah, I started reading you in high school. And they're like, I'm 30 now. Because time does as it will.
Exactly.
But
And
I also just think that's really great that people have felt like they can stick with me for so long and that
yeah.
they felt that what I do is relevant for so long. And that's really a gift because we know how fast things are always moving
Cool.
online. Yeah.
And well, first of all, I want to talk about the beginning. Why did you start the lingerie addict? Because like 40, goodness, what was that? That was 2000 and I can't even do the maths.
8?
2008? Yeah. God.
No. Yeah. No.
No, it is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. 2000. That's like a long
Oh
time ago.
gosh. Yeah.
So what made you like what was like behind you starting it? And obviously, I mean, I imagine at the time you had no idea what it was going to turn into, but what was the
No.
beginning?
So I started it as a hobby. I used to work in nonprofits.
Mm,
I did like crisis work. The last job I had before I started doing this full time, I ran a statewide crisis line for violent crime victims.
mm,
And like nobody calls a crisis line for violent crime victims because they're bored and just want to have a chat. Like everybody is talking to you because they're really traumatized and they need someone to listen to them. And so I started my site kind of from a couple of different places. One is that I wanted something that was not serious, that was like
mm.
not a matter of life and death. That was just very like
Yeah.
nobody's dying because they're not wearing their own bra size or something, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I was also becoming interested in lingerie myself. I was dating somebody at the time. I wanted to find something nice to wear for them.
Mm,
And as I was searching online, there was no information. There were like no reviews, no brand recommendations, no
mm,
store. Like there was really nothing out there um, that I felt was like easily accessible that was giving an advice. And then this was also around the same time that like the neo burlesque movement was coming
mm.
up. There was, corsetry communities happening on LiveJournal and places like that. And so kind of all of that together is what made me start what eventually became TLA. At first it was called Stockings Addict.
Mm.
Um, and no, I just started it like as a hobby. It was on Blogger back in the day when Blogger was a big deal. Um, that was just something to do. And it started with me just sharing stuff that I liked. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is cool. What do you think of it? And then people kind of gradually learned about the site and shared it with friends. It was a very slow, organic process
Mm.
that I'm not even sure is possible to do anymore because so much of the internet has changed. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
like with Instagram and Facebook, like, I don't, well, TikTok, people grew really organically with TikTok. So maybe it's not all over yet.
Mm.
Um, but I think that that particular progression I had feels rarer and rarer now just because the internet and social media and the way people find you has changed
So
so much. Um, but yeah, that was how it
that
started.
was this,
It's yeah.
and I mean, what I find just fascinating is I know when I was starting in 2014, I came across, I probably came across Laundry Addict maybe a year before or that earlier that year. And
I can't hear you. No, you're the volume cut out for a second. Say something again.
yes, so I was just
Okay.
saying that I felt like I stumbled on this place that was just, it was like a treasure trove of lingerie and like a history. And I think that's one of the amazing things is that you are an expert in lingerie and that is self-taught. Um, and and well, initially self-taught, and then you've obviously gone on to do like courses and all sorts of things. But I, it was just this amazing treasure trove of lingerie and a knowledge which I was like, oh my goodness, this like there's a community here that exists, and yet you were so, like you were leading it, and it's amazing that you started it. And I like even to this day, I remember like if anything, like if you mentioned a brand, if you, um, you know, features, it like moved, like it like moved the needle, and that's such an amazing thing for somebody independent, right? So this isn't a major magazine. This isn't, this is literally something you having people just having so much respect for what you said that it really did it really moved the needle. And as somebody who owned an independent brand, your support was phenomenal for us, and I know that so many other lingerie lovers learned about independent brands which they would never have heard of through the Lingerie Addict,
That makes
which
me
is,
happy.
well, I mean, it's a fact, right? It's a fact, and I'm glad it makes you happy. But I mean, how did you like? Because that in and of itself, learning and taking trips to come to trade shows and meeting small brands, and Asia says, I love that Cora gave a voice for women of color in the lingerie arena. Absolutely. But how do you go from being literally, like a blogger on the side to then becoming, Paige says, Cora taught me everything I know. Literally, Cora taught a lot of us everything we know. Buy her book, um, please. um, but yeah, how do you go from starting literally as sort of a hobby to then becoming one of the biggest forces within the lingerie industry?
I think it was that I was okay with not knowing anything and willing to
Mm.
learn. And like I was very passionate about learning, and I realized that like the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know, which made me want to learn more. Um, and like I read every book I could get a hold of. When I found out there were trade shows, I saw that as an opportunity to learn even more. There were certain people that were very generous with their time and knowledge.
Mm.
Like I'm thinking specifically of like Larissa at Hanky Panky, for example,
Yeah.
who was just very generous with what she knew, and that helped. I brought on new columnists
Yeah.
right around when I started doing this full time, and that helped TLA a lot because I mean, as you said, I'm not a trained intimate apparel person. You know, I haven't gone to fashion school. Like I haven't run like a lingerie brand.
Mm.
And bringing people onto my team who were professionals in that way and were experts, I think also motivated me to learn any, even more so that I could make TLA a more inclusive place. But I think it was just really wanting to learn more and wanting to bring the best possible information that I could to my readers because I mean I realized early on that my readers really trusted what I have to say. And I think that when people are giving you their trust,
Mm.
you hopefully like you feel an obligation or you feel like a drive to give them the best information you can. And that was always where I came from. Even if my readers don't agree with everything that I say, because you know,
Yeah.
there's lots of people, it's a big world. At least they can know that I've tried and that I've tried to bring the best information I can to them. And I think that's been a major difference where people feel like, okay, Cora's given us her actual opinion. She's given us her honest thoughts.
Yeah.
And even if I happen to disagree with them or, you know, somebody on my team, like at least I know it was genuine.
Yes.
Um, and I think that makes a really, really big difference in my opinion.
And obviously over time, like as you say, the internet has just changed so much. I know
Yeah.
with Nubian Skin when we started, everything was organic. Like literally
Hmm.
we just, our campaign went viral
I
organically.
remember.
I mean, it still blows my mind because now I'm like, that could just never happen. And the ground has shifted so much. Like as a, independent brand, I'm like, I, I don't really know what's happening here. I think a lot of independent brands are feeling that. And a lot of people who are creatives are feeling that. And obviously, now you are sort of moving on into a new chapter. And I guess I know, obviously I read your articles and you said like this will be the first time you're taking a break basically since you started, and that's 14 years is a long time.
I mean, I'm sure you can empathize with that too, as someone who runs their own business. Kind of, it's always running in the back of your mind, even if you know you're technically on vacation.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and that I mean, there were a few motivations that went into me stopping, and one definitely was like I want to see what else is out there, and I want to be able to take time for myself, and that's something that I haven't been able to do as much as I like. And I think one thing the pandemic perhaps has put in really stark relief is that you know life is short and time is short,
Mhm.
and you should do you know what you can while you're here. And I want to see what else is out there for me. And then kind of speaking to you know organic reach and virality and so on. Um, it's very difficult to reach more. I mean, I feel really good about like my Tumblr and stuff, or like here. I think people are like really interested in what I have to say, but it's increasingly difficult to reach people organically. I think our particular niche, which is lingerie, is frequently suppressed
Oh,
in
good.
the feed and what have you. And I think for me also, it's lingerie edit has really been a labor of love, but it's also been very hard. I mean, as you said, we're independent. Like I don't, there aren't like really big brand or agency contracts that are coming to TLA. The honesty that we've brought to our readers actually, unfortunately, turns off a lot of brands because any brand that I partner with, I want
Yeah.
it to be a genuine partnership where it would be a brand that I would actually spend money on and that I would buy. And so
Yeah.
my standards are higher. And that means there are a lot of brands that aren't a good fit with me or that don't want to advertise with me. And so just kind of all of that together, the increasing marginalization of my space, kind of the realization that even though TLA is the right place for a lot of people, it's not the right place for a lot of brands. Like it's not,
Yeah.
how do I want to say this? That just kind of at the end of the day, what a lot of brands are interested in is someone who would just kind of parrot like talking points. Um, and that's never been where we come from. And I think that has just made it gradually harder and harder to keep the site alive, like to keep it funded. And I feel very fortunate in that I have had supporters, you know, like you and other independent brands. I've had my patrons who are incredible. Um, and and because of that, I've been able to do things like, pay my writers fairly and, pay the people who work with me fairly and on time. But at a certain point, I think you crunch the numbers and you realize that like this is it, like that this is what is
Mm.
there, and then that is what makes you go, okay, well then what else is out there that I can do? And what I'm kind of negotiating with now is, okay, like I don't think people will ever stop thinking of me as a laundry addict, um, but kind of how can I make this like a phase in my life or a part of my life or a section of my
Mm.
life without it being the whole thing. And
Right.
that's kind of that's what I'm going to spend some time figuring out and seeing what that looks like, even though I won't be updating the site anymore. Like the social profiles are going to stay up and all of that, because I don't know what the path forward is going to look like. I feel that was a very, very rambling answer, but
No, but it you know what? It makes sense because you're figuring it out. And that's it. Like, and I love that for you. I love that you are creating the space for yourself to do that. There was a quote that you put in one of your captions, which I think it said, "The longer that I delay,
oh yeah,
the
the longer I do what's not is what is not right for me, the longer I delay what is."
yes,
And that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm proud of the Laundry Addict and proud of what I've been able to do there. Um, but I'm not. I think sometimes I have thought that I like this is all that's going to happen there for
mm,
me, like right now. And then also like how can I reach people where they are, because even though I love blogs, a lot of people aren't reading blogs anymore. Like I mean that's just a
mm,
fact. It's just the truth. Um, and that, I mean, if my passion is teaching people, if it's spreading that knowledge, if it's exposing people to what's out there, then my blog might not be the best place to do that anymore. And so that's going to also be the other thing I'm thinking about is, okay, maybe the site isn't the best place, but is there some other way that I can reach people and teach people and talk to them? So that's going to be the other thing that I'm thinking about,
yeah.
because you have to go where the people are.
Yeah, that's actually very true. I'm like, that's good. That's just general good advice. That is just general good advice. But I think somebody, Kiana says, I think your knowledge would be amazing in a Netflix documentary.
I
Netflix,
agree.
if you are listening,
I agree.
I second that sentiment. Definitely second that sentiment. So, who knows? Watch this space. But I also, from as a woman of color, and as a owner of a brand who, for a brand that is inclusive, I love and value the space that you created, which was safe for women of color and was safe for queer people and was just safe for people who were looking for belonging, because there actually isn't that much out there
Yeah.
that is a safe
Yeah.
space for for like all of those communities.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's part of why that's been passionate for me, for the Laundry Addict, is creating at least one small area on the internet where people feel like they can be themselves without being judged, without other people kind of swooping in and telling them they should be different, without other people discarding their points of view. My site itself has been a body snark free zone for a long time, where we just didn't allow any negative body commentary whatsoever, and that applied to all my social platforms. I have a private group on Facebook that has the same policy that is,
Yeah.
explicitly welcoming to genderqueer people, non-binary people, trans people, sex workers, and then obviously people of color, and just making that something that is not implied, but something that is said outright. And I think when it comes to like inclusivity and safer spaces, I don't like to use the word safe space. There's no place is safe online, but like a safer place. A lot of brands and companies don't want to come right out and say anything. They're trying to play both sides where, well,
Mm.
maybe we are welcoming the trans people, but we don't want to say it because then we're alienate, our
Yeah.
mainstream customers. And you can't do half measures. Like you're either for the thing or you're not for the thing.
But
And
also, it's one of those things where you're like, why can't it just be an open party? Why can't it just be like an open door policy where you're like,
Well, so many
you're
brands
welcome, you come
they don't
in.
want to take a stance because, especially now, I think that with there being so much pushback, particularly against the LGBTQ plus community, brands are like, well, we don't want to alienate people who might buy from us. And it's like, well, then what you're actually saying is you're
Mm.
not interested in making marginalized people feel welcome. Like it's not a zero sum. What is the word I'm looking for?
Zero
I
sum
can't think
game.
of, yeah, like it's not,
Yeah.
in this case, like if there is a winner, then there is a loser. Like
Mm.
if you are prioritizing the opinions of prejudiced people, of bigots, because you're afraid of alienating them, then what you're also doing is making it clear to marginalized people that you don't care about them. Like you can't, like that's what that means. Um, and so yeah, I have been like very explicit about who we welcome, and like just personally, like as a Black person, as a queer person, why would I create a space that my own people aren't welcome in? Like why would I create a space that my own people would feel threatened by? And I think that goes back to other things that I'm sure you understand. We know when there are so few Black people in the industry, there are so few people
Mm.
of color in the industry, that we have to create safe places for each other where we can talk about what our experiences are like. We can talk about the struggles and some of the hostility and some of the things
Yeah.
that just go into existing, as a person of color, as a Black woman in this space. Because there aren't a lot of us.
No.
So
And there is just that like wonderful feeling of when you just like when they can just be like a look and you're like, yeah, it's fine. You understand.
there have definitely been plenty of times when we've been like,
Like no words need to be said. Which I love. I love, I love, I love. And so what excites you about your next phase? If you even know or if you can even share.
I think not knowing is part of the excitement. I would really love to write a second book, and I think one thing that has become clear over the past year, or maybe even since I wrote my first book, is that it's very difficult to run a blog and also write a book. Like they both
Mm,
take a lot of time
yeah,
and a lot of
of course.
creative effort. Um, and the work involved in like editing, writing articles, all of that, there wasn't really a way to do that, I think, and also work on a second book, or to even look at other opportunities or other things. And so that is one thing I would like to do. I would really love to write another book about fashion. I do want to stay like within the world of fashion, ideally. Um, and then other than that, I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody will approach me to give me a job.
I
So
mean, Netflix. Hello.
but so I'm gonna take basically the month of May off, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know. Then I'm gonna go to LA for like a week, but I want to give myself time to relax, but also
Yes.
just time to just turn things over and think without having in the back of my
Yeah.
mind, oh, I need to look at the site. Oh, I got to edit something. Oh, I have to work on something, where I can just like let my brain. And I'm gonna go see my mama, so that would be nice.
Oh, that would be lovely. I mean, I love that so much for you. Knowing you personally, also knowing the amount of not even knowing because I can't know, but seeing from what I have seen the amount of work that you put into it. And I mean, I'm tired and it's been 8 years, 14 years, I just can't even imagine. So I just love that you are going to have the time to just
Yeah, I think there's value in knowing when it's time to leave
Yeah.
something. And that's really hard too, because I
Mm,
think so much of who I am is wrapped up in the laundry addict. But I think it's empowering, even if it's scary, because like I am kind of scared right now, but I think it's empowering to decide when you are going to step away rather
mm.
than being pushed out, if that
Yeah,
makes
no,
sense.
absolutely. And the other thing, which and this is something that I've thought a lot about the past couple of years, is about legacy. Because I think
Mm,
so often we get so tied up in being like, what am I achieving? What am I doing? What is it bringing in? That we forget that someday, like, we're all going to die, right? Like, so whatever you manage to make or do is like, that's fine, it's gone. But legacy is so much bigger than ourselves. And I mean, I don't know anybody that is within the lingerie industry that doesn't know about the lingerie addict, right? And that's huge. Like
that makes me happy.
that's such an amazing legacy. So like to have built to have a legacy, I mean that is phenomenal.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for saying that. One thing that I think has become really clear, like wonderfully clear since I made the announcement, is how many people were watching and how many people were noticing and how many people did think, that I was making a positive impact in their lives. Because I mean, it can be hard to tell, right? Like you just kind of speaking into the ether, and you're hoping people notice and that they like it. Um, but having so many people now that I'm shutting down, make a
Mm.
point of writing to me, of contacting me, and just being like, I want you to know before you go away that what you did really means a lot to me. And so, like thinking about legacy, that is very powerful. Just knowing that I have made a positive impact in some people's lives. It's
In a lot
just,
of people's lives.
yeah,
And also
it makes me
the New
happy.
York, the New York Times wrote an article about you retiring. Most like that's not like
My husband
like
is so
it's kind of
funny.
like if
Like
you ever want to feel good about yourself, just be like, how many
I
people
was very
retire
happy.
and
It's
nobody talks about
my
it.
husband's like when that came out, he was bragging about me like on his work Slack, and I'm just like, why are you talking? And then like it was also published in the New York Times, so he got like a copy and was like in front of his computer. He was like, look, he was showing it off. It was just he's always so supportive. But I just thought that was very funny when he was like, hey, look what happened to my wife, you guys.
I mean, shout out to the supportive husbands, first of all, and secondly, because that's a big deal. Like most people do not get anybody mentioning their retirement. I mean, maybe they get like a watch or like somebody takes them out for retirement drinks. The New York Times writing an article about it, that's
Yeah, that was,
pretty
I
amazing.
cried. Like I genuinely cried. I was like, oh my God, there were people who were really noticing what I did. Like that there were people, fashion journalists who go to runaway shows, who are talking with designers, like who know about fashion, like objectively.
Yes.
And that when I retired, they were like, oh, this is noteworthy. Like this is noteworthy in our industry. And like that that was really incredible because it's not something I expected. It's not something I thought would happen. Um, and when they got in touch and they were like, this is newsworthy. We want to talk about it. It just meant a lot to me. It also meant that like, yeah, I'm definitely retired. Like I can't, like I can't take it
Well, you
back.
know what? I mean, how many times has Jay-Z retired? Or like how many times, like whatever. Just an
um,
evolution.
so yeah, it's very, I don't know. It feels also like I'm ending on a high note. Like I'm ending in a
Mm.
place where, yeah, I don't know a better way to say that. It just feels like I'm ending on a high note. And that's not something everyone gets to do when they're retiring or when they're leaving a career. Um, and I get to do that. And that feels really lovely too.
Oh, well, I think that's a beautiful thing. And Kiana says, I'd love to see what a lingerie exhibit would look like if you were the curator. You know what?
Me too.
I'm at Victorian Albert Museum if you're listening.
Me too. I would love to do that. I think the other thing is I I feel like I can also give myself permission to dream again.
Mm.
Um, and one thing I noticed is, I mean, at some point, I think I kind of forget how to, I think I kind of forgot how to dream bigger.
Yeah,
Um, and
feel you on that.
yeah, and I'm like, well, what would it be like to not impose this artificial ceiling on myself? Because even like looking at people's comments, they're like, no, you should definitely like do this thing over here. Is really encouraging. And I'm kind of like, well, when did I stop thinking about
Mm.
doing like, and I can't even pinpoint a time when I would have been like, oh no, that's not possible for me. But like somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking certain things were a possibility.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't like that. Like I want to dream and dream bigger, and I hope that maybe dropping the blog lets me do that again.
Yeah.
Because I do think I have more to say. I do think I have more to say about the fashion industry. I haven't. It's as though like I ran out of ideas. Like that wasn't the issue.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just figuring out like what's next and the best way to do it.
Well, I love that. And Asia, love you, Asia. Asia says, I will forever be grateful for the piece you ran on my fit modeling career. Just,
You're a big deal, Asia.
I know I'm like all these like lingerie legends who I just like,
Well,
oh,
I mean, you're a legend yourself, Ade. Like I remember what the industry was like before Nubian Skin debuted, and it was looking real thin on the ground for women of color. Like people act like they don't remember, but I remember. And like when you would talk to brands, they'll be like, "Oh, you know, like the beige nude works for everybody, and if you're darker skin, just wear a red bra." And I'm like, "That's no, like beige does not work for everyone." And I remember being so excited at your launch, and then I also remember like what the year after your launch, like all of a sudden we saw a plethora of brands, like a year or two
yeah,
coming
two
out with
years
new
after.
tones, and oh. I'm not gonna name names, or maybe I should name names. I don't know, but
You're like, doesn't matter now. Woo!
but there were these brands who were talking about like, yes, I saw that there weren't any nude options in the lingerie industry, so I decided to invent some. And I really hated how there were mainstream media publications that were giving them credit for something that like that you the word isn't invented, but you do have the best like colors in the industry. The
Yes,
word isn't invented,
that
but
I will always say that
yeah,
you
like you
do.
have like bar none like the best like nude tones in the industry. But I remember just being like, they're totally ignoring what you did and how important and how influential that was, and being offended by it because these other brands that decided to pop up and be, oh no, like I had no idea nude lingerie was a problem until I saw that ace bandage on the gymnast, and you remember what brand that was. And then they don't even make nude tones anymore. It's the difference between these little startups popping up and doing it because it's a trend, and then like people like you who are like, actually, like black people aren't a trend.
Exactly. Our color doesn't change with this.
Yeah, and so that really like it upset me that you were erased from a narrative that you like instigated.
Mm.
Um and that people weren't giving you, your flowers, your due credit for what you did to like literally make a shift in the industry. And that's one of the things that, as far as like the legacy or the mainstream industry, maybe even like, the start of our new brands, is that there was a real reluctance to give women of color credit,
Mm.
for what they do. Um, and that, I mean, that even with me and from my side, that's made me sad because
Mm.
like the legacy brands or the mainstream industry has never really had much to say like to me about my work or what I do. And so I think just kind of seeing how they ignore what Black women are doing and women of color are doing more generally makes me sad, because like we're out here like making moves, doing important things like you, like revolutionizing the industry, and then people are here like, I don't see anything like.
It's funny because I used to panic, like literally just like panic attack when I would see, like very large brands and also brands that just had a lot of funding, come up with a line of, diverse nudes. And then like slowly over the years, I'd be like, and that lasted one season, and that lasted two seasons.
And they
Oh,
didn't even
and
want to advertise it properly. They were still putting the bras on white
oh,
women.
don't,
And
do
I
not.
was like, I don't know, we might be getting a little too real for this chat now. But
And so I literally, and then I was just like, oh, right, this is literally, they saw on, WGSN that this was a trend, and it's their trend for like,
and then they're
20,
like, oh,
2015, and then all of a
and
sudden
then they're done.
disappeared.
They're finished.
And
And
so that helped me get comfortable being like, you know what, I just need to, as we say in Nigeria, face my front. Because like, yeah, for me, obviously it wasn't a trend, right? Like it's part of who I am. It's
mm-hmm.
also in the brand DNA. So that
Yeah. And also your nude tones weren't ashy because even though brands were trying to do them, it was like they were dusted in powder. Like there were some brands I talked to where I saw them like showing me their nudes in market and me just being like, we're not actually like that color.
like we are not looking.
Like
It's
why are you
like
like why do
if you
my
don't want to
titties
put the
look
money into it, just
ashy?
say that.
Like
Just say
why do my titties look like why you want to make them like they got dusted in baby powder? Like that's not that's not what I'm looking for.
oh my gosh. Oh, Fairy says I just need a 40G. We do 40Gs. We do 40Gs. Um, but yes, I mean, it's yeah, the industry is an interesting space, but one of the things that I have
Yep,
loved
zombie
about the
colors.
sorry.
Somebody said zombie colors. Yep.
But one of the things that I have to say that I have loved about being in this industry are the people that I've met. People like you, people like Asia, and also just community. Because when you talk about um, the industry or brands wanting to sort of whitewash or cut out certain people, the venom with which a community will come after people when they're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 is actually it's a powerful thing to see a community stand up for itself.
Well, like you just mentioned Asia again, who I think is still here. When we're talking about like industry icons, like Black women who are icons in the industry. If you are watching this and you don't know who Asia Monet is, which I imagine to most people, if you ever want a plus size bra, like any time in the last decade, basically, the fit model would have been Asia Monet. Big brands, small brands, like she is the industry's leading fit model for plus size brands. She knows her stuff. She's great. Like she's a person you put her in a bra and she's like, oh, you need to adjust the seam here. You need to tweak this. Like she is, that person. Um, but even though brands are happy to use her as a fit model and take her expertise as a fit model, they don't use her to like front their campaigns. So like when we're talking about Black women being made invisible, Black women being ignored, Black women being marginalized, we have a very clear example. Somebody like Asia, who is like knowledgeable and also gorgeous, who is good enough
Stunning.
to be like behind the scenes, but not good enough to be placed like in front. I mean, like you know what I mean? Like you are good enough, but like brands are okay like keeping you hidden. So like when we're talking about ways that Black women are kind of displaced, like I think about that where I see Asia like everywhere from a fit model perspective and she's stunning, but then like I'm looking at these actual editorials and campaigns and I'm like why is she not here?
Questions we do not have answers to.
Questions that need answers. I thought that for a little while.
But again, which is why I was like, I need to get Cora on here before she retires, before she has a break, because you created a space where you talked about things like that. And you cared one to know, and then you highlighted it. And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of with Nubian Skin is when people say like, you made me feel seen. And I think for the lingerie addict, so much of what you did made people feel seen. And that's huge. So I know my brand, like personally, I am so grateful. Because again, you're an expert in the industry, and I know a lot of times whenever I just and I know there's so many times where I've messaged you being like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Whenever people would talk about brands and they'd be like, talk about trends or big things that have happened in the industry. And you'd be like, yes, there are more news. And you'd be like, but did you know that Nubian Skin? And I'd be like, oh my goodness, you know, like here's this like major publication.
Because like it genuinely like no exaggeration, like no funny, like no laughing. It really bothers me the way you were like displaced from the story. Like genuinely, because like I'm like, is everybody's memory that short? Like what is happening here? And yeah, to me that's not acceptable. Like to just all of a sudden make you invisible, like you didn't exist, like you didn't do a big thing. And like you're a brand that I buy from person. I feel like I want to sneeze. I don't know if it's going to come on though.
You need to like look at the light and then.
Yeah. But, okay. But like you're one of the brands that like I actually like. I have your waist cincher and I have that slip and I've bought your stockings. Hello. So like when I say that I love your brand, it's not coming from a place of like, oh well, you know, she's an influencer. Of course, she's just saying any old thing because they send her freebies. It's like no, like you are a brand. Like I actually purchase from like under my real name, like with my own money, that like I wear because I love what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. And Pillar Book says, I cried when you introduced my brand. You opened the door for me to get my foot or name out there. Never ever.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I mean, from me, from I know my whole team, I think you're awesome. From so many people here who've just, you know, mentioned the role that you've played in their journey and in their discovery of lingerie. Just thank you for 14 years of service, which is huge, and you know, thank you for being an advocate and for, as you say, creating a safer space on the internet. I am so excited. First of all, I'm excited for you to rest. And
Me too.
And then I'm just so excited to see whatever comes next, because it will be, I love that when you say it's going to just give you space to dream again and dream big, which
yeah.
is
And
so
also
needed.
I'll be selling a lot of stuff because I need like physical space now as well. So I have too much. So like just space in general, like in my life and in my home, in my time. And it's like, it is frightening because I'm leaving a sure thing and something that I knew well and something that I like built from scratch that is mine, and moving into something where I don't know what's next. And I mean, and that's kind of frightening, but I think this also might be a case where like growth, like real growth comes from doing that new thing. I mean, like Nubian Skin was once like brand new for you and you had to leave something that you knew and were familiar with.
This is very true. And I mean, we're like exploring new things as brand in our new collections as well. So yeah, it's constantly evolving and sort of seeing where what happens next and if people respond to it. But you've got to take risks.
Yeah. I actually just got the thing you sent me like right before this call. I hadn't opened it yet. I was gonna wait until like we got on the call before I opened it. So like I think I actually am gonna open it. So I was like, well, now that it was like 4:35 or something. we needed to talk at 5 p.m. I was like, well, I will just wait.
Well done, DHL.
So I know, like, thank you also for sending this so quickly. The miracles of overnight shipping. Oh, this is lovely.
It is. I listen. I'm very proud of this collection. It's like French lace and stretch tulle.
Yeah. And like the tulle still has like the various skin tones, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's still our signature skin tones, but it's a raspberry pink French lace. So it's very, very nice. I'm very excited for you to try it on.
Oh, this is pretty. No, it feels so nice in the hand. I'm gonna definitely give this like a try. This won't be one of the things that I'm selling as I like offload my lingerie. That's so pretty. Also, like, how exciting!
In the back.
How exciting that you're like expanding into different things too.
Yeah,
and like always pushing for what's new.
We've got some really, really exciting things coming up, which I'm very excited about. So I will obviously be keeping you updated.
Ooh, like a little bralette. This will be nice for wearing over the summer.
Mm, yeah.
Definitely. Oh, lovely. Thank you for this.
You're welcome. I'm actually shocked that it arrived.
Yeah, it was there waiting for me, like at the bottom of the stairs when I got back. You know, thank goodness that it arrived, because I feel like, especially in New York, delivery can be a little spotty. So I'm glad it came here.
Well, I know it's definitely late for me. It's getting late
Oh,
for
that's
others.
right.
But thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you
Thank you
for
all for coming.
all your lovely comments. And oh my goodness, somebody had said something earlier which I wanted to highlight, Cora, which said you need to be a little bit less humble because you've done like ridiculously amazing things. So
Thank you.
yes, when it comes to dreaming big and shouting about yourself, do not be so humble because it's phenomenal. But thank you for just being you and for doing something amazing for the past 14 years. And have a lovely, lovely, lovely break because it is so well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and for being a part of this. This is like one of the very last things I'm doing before like I head off. So thank you all for being here.
Well, lots of love to everybody. Hopefully I will see you at some point, Cora.
Yeah, like next time I come to London, we'll definitely like hook up and get dinner.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be lovely.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody. No, I just need to
Okay.
go
Good night.
back to 5.
Bye.
Bye.